back then, guys. Sorry about that. So, this is take 2 because the internet decided to die. So, I've changed rooms and we're joined by special guest Rosie as well. Andy Gibney, thank you very much for joining me again. You have been on the podcast before, and I would highly encourage people to go and check that one out. But for the people that haven't listened to the podcast yet, or that one, who is Andy Gibney, and what are you all about, sir? What are you all about?
What am I all about?
Yeah.
What am I all about? There's a question. So many things really. My principal interest is the power of words, I would say, through teaching, through reading, through writing songs. You know, think of not remotely distracted by your dog. Oh, look at it! Look. Let's just talk about dogs. Forget martial arts.
Let's just talk about dogs. Yeah, we'll get into dogs.
Dogs, and how they can. What are you doing? What is he?
Labrador.
What breed is he? He's a Labrador.
Fox Red Lab.
Oh yeah, Fox Red. Yeah, we have some of those around here as well. Dogs are just great.
Yeah, and she's a good girl.
Oh, she's a good. Sorry. See, we always reference dogs by our own version that we have, don't we? So my dog, because he's got a really pretty face, lots of people think he's a girl.
Yeah,
he's a boy. But he's a boy. I'll show you how much of a boy he is. Look,
he's a gorgeous boy. Yeah, I've just finished your book actually, which we'll get onto in a bit.
Oh, okay.
Dog walking for beginners.
Look at this. Sabbath's on a calendar.
The little Sabbath calendar.
Yeah. Well, it's actually it's a local rescues, of which he was a member. So it's a rescue calendar, but they put him on the cover, and I'm so outrageously proud of that. It's ridiculous.
Cover boy, definitely should be.
Cover boy. So he's in a book.
With a face like that.
Yeah, he's in a book. He's on a calendar. I remember when we started this podcast, we were going to talk about martial arts, but it's gone downhill pretty quick.
Yeah,
I would say
that was good. That was 2 minutes and 5 seconds, and we've already digressed.
Almost immediately. Yeah, we talk about martial arts. Yeah, we did that. We got on dogs, and as you get older, he's my first dog. You see, so when Kirsty passed, I ended up with a dog. So I got married and ended up with a dog. I don't know how that works, and because of that, I've learned so much stuff. I've learned a lot about teaching because of dogs.
Okay.
Because if you, especially kids classes, I treat exactly the same as training Sabbath. So if you allow children, I tell my kids off last night, they were too giggly. So I told them off. I mean, some of them are only 5, you know, you have to expect this stuff, but I don't allow it. It just has to. And I said my number one priority with teaching children is safety. Because if they muck about and they smack someone in the face, they cry. You know, if you as an adult cry, we laugh at you. But if you cry as a child, I mean, I do laugh, but equally the parents get upset, you see. Mm-hmm. So I just said to him, you know, you have to stop dicking about because I don't want you to get hurt. And you perform better. So and I learnt that from the dog, really, you know, because if he mucks about and he runs across the road, I lose my dog. He gets run over, and so again it comes back to safety again. And I also learnt lots of things about enthusiasm with him, because
enthusiasm.
His What the hell is that? Oh, you brought your toy.
Chew toy, yeah.
Oh, chew toy. Now, if you chew that as well, that'll be an awesome podcast. And so the things that I learnt about enthusiasm was, whenever I say that we're going to go for a walk, or I change into my walking trousers, he goes nuts. Mm-hmm. And I thought, God, I wish students would have that level of enthusiasm on a regular. As soon as they
put that gi on, or as soon as they put that belt on, the enthusiasm, no.
Or it's 4 o'clock, because I teach Sunday, Tuesday and Thursday. It's 4 o'clock, and at 4 o'clock, those people are starting to go, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. But often, as you and I know, as human beings, the toughest part is getting your ass out the sofa.
Absolutely.
And then I have, at my martial arts centre, I have a room called the Cabin. It's got 4 bookshelves in it, full of books, and 5 sofas. Nice. It's like the best living room I've ever been in, ever.
Yeah. And,
nice. So we get them to go in there, and they wait, the adults go in there before the kids' class, and then you have to try and get them out of the room. I have students who I have to tell them to leave the books alone. And so that's good. And that's going back to where you asked, what am I about? I'm about words and about stories and about the teaching methods, and about where it comes from, and also about where it's going as well. I'm very interested Not so much now, because I've studied it a lot, but very interested in the roots of the arts that we do, whether it's karate and Gichin Funakoshi, or whether it's Jeet Kune Do and Bruce Lee, or whether it's the origins of BJJ, all those types of things. I like to know, where does it come from? There used to be a great series on TV called Inside the Actor's Studio, and they interviewed everybody: Clint Eastwood, Paul Newman, all the greats, Tom Cruise, everybody you could think of was on there, and I was always interested in that journey from being a little boy or little girl to becoming the person. Like the study of Marilyn Monroe is a really interesting story because of she had such a difficult upbringing. Yet that little girl who was Norma Jean Baker became Marilyn Monroe, and yet she could disappear as well. And she used to say, she was in London filming in 1955, and she was in Regent Street. I believe she was in Regent Street, and no one was noticing her. And she said, "Shall I do her?" And the person who was with her, like bodyguarding her, said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she transformed into Marilyn Monroe. And
wow!
In one moment she was walking about, and in the next moment she was mobbed by all these people.
I was going to say, yeah. So people saw a difference, and immediately.
Yeah, but how do you do that? Now, I mean, the only thing I ever saw remotely like that, and it wasn't like that, but remotely, was when I first met Danny Goober, my Dusty Paris instructor. I took him to a seminar that Bob Sykes was hosting. It was him and Percival Pableo, his training partner. And they were teaching in Huddersfield. Anyway, we'd picked Danny up from London and driven to Huddersfield, and it was me and my girlfriend at the time, Anne-Marie. We drove up there, and in the back we have these two crazy Filipinos talking at 300 miles an hour because they'd never been around England. They thought England was London, and that was that.
Right.
So now they're on the way to Huddersfield. So in the back we have these two. I mean, Danny was in his 40s then, but in the back of the car it looked like we had two 7-year-olds. And then we got out and they stepped on the mat, and Danny Goober became Danny Goober, crazy man. I was like, bloody hell, what happened? He stepped off the mat, he turned back to being a 7-year-old again. It was bizarre.
Yeah, switch, interesting.
Switch, yeah, because he knows how to turn on the personality.
Well, that's it. And I spoke to a few people recently, actually, very recently, who are martial arts instructors, but in their day-to-day life, they're very quiet and they're very not introverted perhaps, but definitely not as extroverted as they would be in terms of running a class and kind of controlling a room of maybe 20, 30, 40 people or whatever. Yeah. And I kind of have that as well because I'm quite introverted in general if I meet people, but then on the class you kind of put that different hat on, don't you? And then you're trying, I say, operative word, to command a class of 20 or 30 people or whatever, get them to do what you want, and then you take the hat off again. And then it's like, okay, back to being Dan, or back to being Andy, or back to being Danny Goober, or whatever. And it's just that slight shift in personality.
I think anybody who runs a successful group, people come for the personality of the class, don't they? Yeah. It might not be the style at all that you like. You know, when I was younger, I trained with a guy called Ash Kumar who taught Tang Sudo. And Tang Sudo was never really my style, but I really liked Ash. He was He didn't look like anything like a martial artist. I mean, talk about I don't look like a martial artist. Ash definitely didn't. Had a bit of a pot belly on him. Yeah. He had a properly successful career. Yeah. He had amazing flexibility, great kicks, but was a really nice guy. Really nice guy. And I trained there for 6 months at that club before I moved away and moved more over this way where I live now. But it wasn't the style that held me, it was Ash.
The person. Well, it's like anything with a tribe. Like you need to have that people, and you connect with people on your level, don't you? In people that you like and people that you feel that affinity with. Yeah, sometimes absolutely. The martial art is kind of secondary to that. People want to feel that community, and then they just happen to go, oh, kind of what are we learning, by the way? And that could be 6 months down the line, whether that's kickboxing or JKD or Kali. They kind of go at the end of it. They go, oh, I feel fitter, I feel healthier, but I've no idea what we're doing. It's like, okay, so it's on the instructor then to kind of go, okay, this is the lineage, this is the roots, this is what we're teaching. But yeah, that's when people walk into an academy, that's not necessarily what they're looking for.
We keep tripping out a little bit, don't we? But it's good. We'll keep going.
It's a little trip, but it's all good. Yeah. So JKD then, Andy, what first got you started on JKD onto that path? You've talked about the Tang Sudo and things that you've done previously, and you started with karate, correct? But then you're well known now for the JKD and the Kali aspect of it.
Yeah, we had a really interesting karate class. There were two brown belts when I started my karate class. One was a guy called Rob. One was a guy called Jerry. Jerry was absolutely rigid. Japanese is the way.
Yeah.
Rob, who had a lot of flexibility, was very much a Bruce Lee fan in a Shotokan club.
Right.
And they remained friends, but completely opposite to what they believed they should do. And Rob was the guy who really sort of interested me in, because he had magazines and stuff like that. I didn't really have those magazines at the time. He'd been training probably about 3 years or 4 years or whatever it was. And so his magazines interested me. Then I had a friend of mine called Phil Vizzy, and then he had all the early books, and I started to do that. I'd remembered the film, Enter the Dragon, and then bizarrely, there used to be a program on ITV called World of Sport, and every now and then they would show clips of Enter the Dragon. So you'd have an article on football, you'd have an article on wrestling, or you'd have wrestling on, and you'd have the 3:30 from Kempton. Oh, let's just show a clip from Enter the Dragon. And you'd go, what? No sense at all. And which was fun. And so that was the only time you could see it, because it was an X film then, an 18. And when video first came out, there were a number of films that came out on video in their entirety. The Exorcist being one of them, and Enter the Dragon being another. And those were the films that you could get on video. So
VHS.
I was interested. And so I just started at the karate class, and then because of my influences at the time, started to become more interested in the Bruce Lee path and what it was about. I was reading magazines like Martial Arts International, what was it called? Terry O'Neill's magazine, which is a really good magazine.
Yeah.
All these different things. And so I became interested in that. And then in 87, there was a seminar advertised in London with Larry Hartzell and Terry Barnett. I was hosting it.
Brilliant.
So that was my first seminar, and I went there. Honestly, I've never seen anything that blew my mind more than that Larry Hartzell seminar.
What was it that did it then? Because quite a few people have said this. I've spoken to Guru Rick Fay about this, who was obviously his training partner.
He was there. He was one of the assistants.
There we go then, see. Yeah,
Rick
they always
Fay was,
speak with reverence about Larry.
Yeah, Rick Fay was Larry's assistant and Terry Barnett was the host. And so we had these two amazing martial artists as hell, and me, Mr. Muppet, who travelled down with his girlfriend. Poor cow sat on the side wondering what on earth this idiot was doing. And I was just utterly blown away. I learnt to slip a punch. I was used to this.
Sure, yeah.
And he taught me to slip a punch. I could have learned that from any boxing club going. And yet, I learnt to slip a punch. He was doing 12 count lock flows, which I was getting lost at 7 every time. Doing some stand-up grappling, enting to trappling to grappling. Talked about Bruce Lee. Every time, there was like 100 people in this big room. Every time he talked about Bruce Lee. And Larry Hartzell spoke very softly. Everybody was like this. Trying to hear what he was saying.
Southern twang.
Talking about Bruce Lee. Because remember, in 87, that's only, what was it, 14 years after Bruce had died.
Yeah.
You know, now we're looking at 50 years since he died, but, 14 years, and this man knew Bruce Lee. Bloody hell, knew Bruce Lee. And we were fascinated. And Larry was just a nice guy. Massive shoulders. His head, shoulders like my head. Interesting man. Again, early 40s, so peak of their powers.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I spoke to Terry Barnett and I said, do you do any classes? And he said, I don't, but I'm teaching private lessons. And I said, oh, great, okay, can you give me the prices? So he gave me his price. It was £20 for 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. This was 1987. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I went, yeah, all right, yeah. And I gave him a couple of dates. He said, I can do both those. I was like, oh, I meant one or other. Oh, I'm going. That was it. And I was working in a McDonald's at the time. My money was nothing really, but didn't matter. All my money went on training after that. I would go down on the train to London and train with Terry, and then after about 18 months, I think I drove him completely mad because he passed me on to Ralph Jones, and then I started training with Ralph for 3.5 years. Then I was introduced to stick fighting in the early days. I mean, that was hilarious in itself, and ended up getting in the British team with Bob Breen. It was just
exactly.
Sometimes people will say to me, "Oh bloody hell, look at the age you are," because I'm 63 next month, and they go, "Oh, you're getting old now," and I'm going, "Yeah, but I lived through that."
What a
You know, I
time.
didn't meet
Yeah,
Bruce
yeah.
Lee, but I met all of his students at the peak of their powers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, when you saw Dan Inosanto and I mean, the man's nearly 90 now, he's 88, isn't he?
He is,
89.
yeah,
He's
88, yeah.
incredible. But when he was in his 40s, he was a different class. You know, the only one I met who was older, who was still incredible, absolutely amazing, was Kakoi Kenyeti. He was 78 when I started training with him, but
Okay.
blonde. Yeah,
That's
you
still
couldn't touch
amazing.
him.
It's inspiring, isn't it? It is inspiring.
Yeah.
You know, because you think you have this image of kind of older people now, and maybe that's a Western thing. I don't know, but there's this image of kind of you're a little bit frail, you're slowing down in life, like you're a little bit less active. Everything's just on the slow, and then you see these amazing men and women that are just kind of taking, you know, their age thing and just going, fuck that. No, I'm going to keep training. I'm going to keep longevity. Is all about it. I'm going to keep flexible. I'm going to keep moving. You're not moving
Yeah.
the same as you were when you're 40, but you're moving it still incredibly well. Like if I can move as well as Bob Breen when I'm, you know, well, if I could move as well as Bob Breen now, I'd be quite happy. So,
Well, Bob's 75, isn't he?
perfect example, yeah.
When I first knew Bob, he was suffering from candida, and he had terrible hips because I think he's had both his hips replaced.
He has.
He was
Yeah.
having so many troubles. We were in the Philippines in '92, and he couldn't get any water for whatever reason. We couldn't find water, and so he had a sip of Coke, and within 30 minutes he was absolutely crippled. He could barely move, the poor bugger.
Yeah.
And that was the sort of thing because it was all gut health.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure how he got through all that, but I know he
still
doesn't
struggles
have
with it now, so yeah, bless him.
Does he? Oh, right, okay, right.
Yeah.
But, you know, and this was a man, again, in his 40s, doing really, really well, doing great things. And yet, you know, you would never have imagined him at 75 to have the sort of movement that he has and the skills that he has and everything else and the attitude. I think a younger wife helps. That'd be my experience as well.
Yeah, Judy's lovely, definitely. She keeps on
Judy's great,
great, I'm sure. Yeah.
Exactly that.
I think you hit the nail on the head there by saying the attitude as well. I think some people go, I'm getting older. And then some people go, fuck that, I'm not getting older. Right, I'm going to keep moving, keep doing that. And Bob Breen's, I think, a perfect example of that. Still teaching private, still going around the world. Like he was in Spain last year with me, and then Matt Chapman as well, doing seminars there. He's been to Paris the year before when I went with him, and he's just teaching. He's out on the circuit, and he's just teaching, you know, seminars. You know, it was like 90 people, I think, when we went to France. And then it's just, I mean, yeah, it's just a really cool thing to see, I think, and just to show those expertise. And
You know, the person who's inspired me the most over the last year is Dick Van Dyke. Just turned 100. Just turned 100 years old.
Still hitting
And
the
then
gym.
I was looking at him and looking at his 100-year, and then I looked and realised that his wife is younger than me. I thought, there's a lesson.
Fair play, fair play. Have you heard what he said about fitness in the gym? So he said, like, in terms of 20s, I did it to look good, something like this. I'm paraphrasing, I think.
Yeah.
30s, I still did it to look good. 40s, I did it to keep my strength. 50s, you know, I did it for kind of longevity and to keep myself mobile. And then it goes up, and then 90s is saying, I'm just doing it out of spite now. Like, I'm just going to keep going to the gym just as a bit of a fuck you. Just going, I still can. And I'm like, yeah, again, what a good attitude. Just go, no, I'm still going to go because you say I can't.
But someone asked Clint Eastwood once. He said, "How do you act so young, or how is it that you still seem to be so young?" He said, "I don't let the old man in."
Nice. Yeah.
And so how old are you now?
35.
Yeah, when I was your age, I was looking at people like Richard, who was like 20-something years older than me, and Kakoi, especially when I met him. What do they eat? What do they do? I want to do this forever. You know, that's always been my attitude.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I didn't want to look shit at 50. You know, I've never met an 18-year-old who thought like I did ever. So that was, the vanity was part of it. You know, and as you get older now, I'm going, look, Dick Van Dyke is 100. I've always wanted to be 100, but I want to be a decent 100. I don't want to be...
Yeah, not a crap 100. A good 100.
No, I don't want to be a crap 100. No, if I'm dribbling, shoot me now. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, that's it. So that's the process, really. It's martial arts for life. You know, all the stuff that we talk about in terms of arguing about technique or where the origins were, all that's quite interesting, but ultimately, when you wake up every day, do you wake up and bounce out of bed, or do you wake up and go, oh fuck me, that hurts, that hurts? You know, there's that meme about Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, isn't there? And they're all head to toe in bandages. Maybe that's why I was never really that attracted to the groundwork, really, because so many people get injured, and I always thought, I do this for a living, I can't be injured.
Knee operation for me 4 weeks ago, BJJ related. So yeah, case in point. But then also, I'll get back on the mats. It's all good.
Yeah. A lot of people like it, don't they? It's never been a massive interest of mine. I
How
quite
much,
like the,
how much was the grappling involved when you started with Richard? Was it more of a striking base and a trapping base, or did you do the grappling as well?
yeah, grappling was always part of it. Richard always worked on. If he did a seminar for me, it was always in 4 areas. So we would start. Usually, you always went this order as well. We do JKD and Carly on the first day, do 2 hours of each, and then the next day we do Thai boxing and boxing, and in the afternoon it was BJJ.
Nice.
It was always that way.
Okay.
I mean, when I first started training with him, the grappling was all shoot fighting based.
Yeah.
And then the grappling, because I didn't know this, but Richard told me that him and Dan were the first people to bring the Gracies out into the world of Los Angeles, especially. They knew them when they were training out of a garage in wherever it was.
Torrance, I think, wasn't it?
Probably, which is where
Yeah,
Richard.
and I think Dan helped get the visas for the Gracies, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's
Massively.
the story.
You know, and you think of the things that those 2 guys have exposed us to, not just the Filipino guys,
Oh, yeah.
but the BJJ, and then you've got the Thai boxing through Chai Sirasu.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
all that was helped. I mean, in England that was different with Toddy and Sken.
Yeah.
But with they've just opened up so many different things to this world, and it just cracks me up when people criticise Dan for whatever reason. I mean, it always seems to bounce off him. I learnt a lot from Richard about not responding to criticism, because what was Richard's quote was, "Eagles will always be eagles, and monkeys will always be monkeys."
Yeah, very true. Yeah, very true. I just don't understand how anyone can criticise Dan, if I'm honest. You know, as we've just said, his expertise and his knowledge and what he's brought to the martial arts world, if absolutely nothing else, it's undeniable. Like, yeah, there wouldn't be a Gracie BJJ now. There wouldn't be the BJJ wouldn't be on the same level. The UFC wouldn't be on the same level if it wasn't for people like Guru Dan bringing it over and kind of introducing it, having such that open mentality of going, okay, yeah, this is interesting. Let's bring it in. Let's use the contacts. Let's spread the word. So yeah, I don't understand it personally, but hey ho. In terms of that, then, we had a conversation a few weeks ago, just before Christmas, actually, wasn't it, on JKD and where we think it is now, and you were part of that kind of roundtable discussion. What's your thoughts on it then? Because it all got very a bit confusing and things like that. Who was speaking, who wasn't. What is your thoughts on where JKD is now? And you know, as someone that's kind of gone and seen it in various stages, I'd imagine. You know, as you say, when you started training, it was 14 years after Bruce died. You've seen it through its heyday of kind of having Guru Dan and people like Larry, Rick Fay, etc., all at kind of their peak, I suppose. And then now, they're not slowing down. Well, they are slowing down because they're getting older. But it's on to the next stage now, I suppose, the next generation of people that are doing it, and then maybe even the next generation after that as well. So where do you see it going? What do you see it happen? Where do you think the state of it is now, in terms of your own professional opinion?
Well, I also have to take that into consideration with my development as well. So when I wanted to learn Jeet Kune Do, it's as simple as that. You know, I thought Bruce Lee was incredible. I wanted to learn that stuff. I mean, it is interesting watching Enter the Dragon now and going, that's not quite as fast as I remember it, you know.
Yeah.
But it was incredibly fast, and Richard used to talk about Bruce's speed.
Yep.
But a character like Bruce Lee is like a character like Elvis Presley. There ain't going to be another one.
No.
Now, in terms of knowledge, if we're just talking pure knowledge, most people have more knowledge than Bruce Lee, because, well, if I didn't have more knowledge than Bruce Lee now, and he'd only trained for 18 years and I've trained for 45, I didn't do a very good job, did I?
And it's not quite lining up there, is it? Yeah.
Well, that's nothing to do with skill, and that's nothing to do with ability. So in those heydays we were talking about, the athletes of the time were the Carl Lewises, there's Greg LeMond on the bike, or Bernardino on the bike, or there was racing drivers like Senna and all those sorts of guys. They seemed to be, at that time, unique. Muhammad Ali would be the most unique athlete I could think of in terms of the way his mind worked, his philosophy on life, and his skill level. And so, if I said I wanted to learn to box like Muhammad Ali, there is no way in the world I could, because I'm 5'7", not 6'2". I'm lighter, bloody well better be lighter than Muhammad Ali. And so his skill level is so high.
Yeah.
how do I do that? I don't have the attributes for it. Bruce Lee, remember, Bruce Lee was utterly soul focused.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I like Bustillo, because he had lots of diverse interests. I like lots of very funny man. It's funny, when he died, people were coming out going, oh, Richard sent me this really lovely letter. I go, that's nice. Or Tony Pillard said, yeah, he sent me this really nice thing about the cancer experience he was going through and all that. Richard sent me a dirty joke. That was the last thing I got from him. That summed up our relationship, because he was a lovely man. So I saw that development of JKD through Richard. And now if I was to teach, like in a week's time, I'm teaching from Bruce Lee to you.
I was going to get onto that, yeah.
It's that development of, this was if we look at the young boy who went to Ip Man as a 13-year-old, and by the time he got to America, what was that development? Why was he doing that? Now, what's happening now is, as I get older and realising what happened with Richard, is my students know what it is, but they don't know the line. And I want them to know the line, because that's my job, is to teach it all.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can talk about that, but it sort of just bounces off, like off into the atmosphere. So I'm doing 4 different days on different arts this year about this timeline thing. But also, this is what it was. So I saw recently, I can't remember which school it was, but someone has just brought out an online course called the 1966 Evolution.
Okay.
And on one level, that's really interesting. On another level, it's completely pointless.
Yeah, because we're not in 1966 and it's done and things have progressed.
Did you see that movie, Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah.
What a fantastic film. But any car today will beat those cars.
Yeah.
Any car.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem I have with looking just at JKD, is you've got to look at the evolution. I was really lucky to know Ted Wong. Mm-hmm. And when I first saw Ted Wong in 1993, Dave Carnell brought him over, and I thought, well, he's interesting, but he ain't got a bloody clue about fighting.
Right.
6 years later, I saw him in New York and went, Jesus, he's good.
Right.
Because he could move. He's my age now, and he just moved like a ballerina. He was fantastic, but he wasn't a fighter, Ted. He was the epitome of Jeet Kune Do, because he'd learned directly from the man who developed it. Okay. And he believed everything that Bruce said, and that's fine. But Richard said to me as well, you've got to evolve. You can't just have this, because there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
Now, there are certain practitioners, as a young man in Scotland, who's absolutely brilliant at that form of Jeet Kune Do, and probably won't countenance any other area. He is fantastic at that, but it's not particularly for me, because I like the idea of the JKD
evolution. Flow.
Evolution.
Yeah.
Exactly, the evolution. Because I think there's more things to learn. It's like if I taught a class and it was purely self-defense, I would have people who are really good at self-defense, but they'd be a bit limited in their scope. Mm-hmm. So I think people train for 6 reasons. Self-defense is one of them.
Yeah.
Sport, personal development, fitness, social aspects, and history and tradition. Now, there isn't a person in the world who ever joined a martial arts class to learn history and tradition. But if you come to my class, you will learn it, because I think it's important to your personal development in terms of understanding the history. Now, what also happens is that changes. So I started for self-defense, but I'm only in it for personal development now, with the option of those other areas as well. If I can't defend myself, I've definitely wasted 45 years.
Yeah.
So that's really critical to me, and to understand, coming from a karate background where they said self-defense was kicking someone in the head, and I realised pretty quick that ain't the way you do it.
Yeah.
Kick them in the shin might be better. And so that process is really interesting to me. So the JKD that I follow the idea, and that is to absorb, not absorb what is useful, to research your own experience, then to absorb what is useful, reject what is your own, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own creation.
Yeah.
But everybody forgets research your own experience. They just forget that line. Oh, I don't need that line. Yes, you do, because without the research, you've got nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing at all. You can't absorb, and you can't say what's useless, because you'd be like me in 1993 going, oh, Ted Wong, he don't know what he's on about. No, you're the idiot, because you didn't have enough knowledge to be able to put that stuff in place. So
yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know, do you? That's the thing.
I've just been on a 2-day business course, and I've been going to these courses for 14 years, and I learnt things the other day. I was just like,
fuck.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Chastised, knobhead, should have learnt that years ago.
Yeah. A very quick message now, guys, from our brand new sponsors, Nest Management. Let's be honest, most of us got into martial arts to teach, not to wrestle with the spreadsheets. If you love helping students but you hate the admin, that's where Nest Management step in. They handle the boring stuff like payments, bookings, and all those little jobs that usually end with you wanting to go 3 rounds with your laptop. You focus on the teaching, they manage, they market, and they take some of the stress away. Simple. Check them out at nestmanagement.co.uk.
So, in terms of where JKD is at the moment, I think it's losing its identity. I think the problem is all the original students are dead, bar Dan.
Yeah.
I think Steve Golden's around, but who knows?
Not very active, yeah.
Not very active.
Yeah.
Its heyday was the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And since then it's evolved. And it's, Dwight was saying at the time about the sport element, and that might be interesting. You don't need a sport element to JKD. Who gives a shit? That's not what the art was designed for. It's designed for Bruce Lee to be the best street fighter he could be. And in what he did, he was such a character and an actor and a film star that all of that stuff came out, and all that's great.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's lost its way. I think it's very important in the evolution of what my system, which is unified fighting system. Like even my logo, we changed 3 years ago to reflect where we are now.
Yeah.
We used to have a badge which was the JKD logo, the INB logo, and the Dossi Pares, Caco's Dossi Pares, and we just cut it down because I wanted it to be simple.
Yeah.
This logo came about through thinking about the Tasmanian Devil, the character. Exactly that. And I described this to my designer, thinking it would be like this, and he just did this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he just put so that's what the energy is all about.
Yeah.
That in a fight is chaos, and you should be like a sawmill, just cutting through everything. That was the idea.
Yeah.
So unified fighting systems is a blend of Jeet Kune Do is part of it, boxing is part of it. The groundwork is part of it, whether it's wrestling or BJJ or judo or whatever, and then all the eskrima systems. And we have the 4 different areas. We do the mind, we do the stand-up, we do the groundwork, we do the weapons, and that's martial arts to me.
Yeah.
Because there's loads of stuff to learn, and you don't stay in any endeavour for 45 years only wanting to learn the simplified Jeet Kune Do that Bruce was teaching in 1967. I mean, he even said, Ted Wong told me this. He said that in 1972, he was talking to Bruce on the phone, and he said, trapping, he said, get rid of it. It doesn't work. He said, the only thing I'm using now is Paxal Lopsal.
Yep.
Because he said, as soon as you put the boxing hands into it, most of that stuff disappears.
Yep.
And then you have to look at styles, and then you ask yourself, how relevant are styles? If you play golf, and you played golf with Rory McIlroy, or you played it with one of the other Americans, you wouldn't ask him what style of golf he's doing.
Just does golf.
He just does golf.
Yeah.
But he has a style, and he has a swing and all that sort of stuff. If you went back to the 50s with Ben Hogan, who was supposed to have one of the best swings, of Gene Sarazen, these old golfers who had this amazing stuff, how would they compete against the modern golfer? They would still be skillful golfers. They would still be skillful in their system of what they do. Yeah. It's a very curious thing is martial arts. What style do you do?
It's very odd. It's very, in one way, it's very, we have the martial arts community. I think that's great. But in another way, it's very fractured because people are put into camps of going, well, I do karate. Oh, well, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Well, I do Jeet Kune Do. Well, I do kickboxing. Well, I do boxing. And inevitably, there's the people that go, yeah, but why are you doing that? I do kickboxing. And then, blah, blah, blah. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing the trapping? Why are you... And everyone also always has that slight... Or no, actually, no, not everyone does. Sorry, I take that back. Some people then have that my style is better than your style mentality all the time. Which is
sure.
It's redundant. So what?
Well, that's like people arguing between Italian and Indian food, isn't it?
Yeah, what do you like? Okay, what do you fancy tonight?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you want curry for lunch? No, honestly, I don't. So often you go on a business thing and you have curry for lunch. It's just like, that's just weird. I have a sandwich, or I don't have lunch at all.
Yeah.
I have breakfast and I have dinner, and that's my lot.
Yeah.
So there is all that stuff that goes on about JKD. I do think it's the only people talking about JKD are the people who do JKD.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is asking what your JKD is like.
No.
I don't think anyone in boxing is asking. it's a product of its time. You know, the founder is an important character, but you should never ever be hung up on Bruce Lee, really, unless you like the character. That's interesting as well. As a young man, he's an interesting individual. In 14 years, what he did was amazing.
Oh, incredible! Yeah,
that's interesting. But that's, you know, you can be as interested in Steve Jobs as well, can't you?
Yeah, there's always going to be, what's the word, like outliers, I suppose. And
Yeah, the outliers. Yeah,
outliers.
and so my personal opinion is JKD as an art is struggling. I mean, people like me aren't really helping, are we? Because I'm saying it's evolved, you know, and there will be people in the traditional camp.
But maybe that is helping. Maybe that's what needs to happen. It does need to evolve. I agree with you. I think it should evolve. I think everything's evolved. I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's evolved since it.
Oh, massively.
You know, it has. It has to evolve. Kickboxing's evolved since it first started coming. Boxing has evolved from the old Queensberry rules kind of thing.
Yeah.
Things evolve or they die.
About 4 years ago, I think it's 3 or 4 years ago, one of my top students, a guy called Dave Tomley, who takes care of damn near all the grappling side now because he's obsessed with it. He absolutely loves it. Dave started following Pritt Mickelson, and is it Chris? I've forgotten his name. Anyway, but all the BJJ, what were they called? BJJ International or something, whatever they're called.
Right.
And following their sort of philosophy, where they have these 5 defences that they teach to the white belts.
Yeah.
You know, just keeping all of this stuff nice and tight. So they have great names like, you know, like grilled chicken. Dave every now comes out and says to, I remember him saying there's like 5 women there, and he says, "Show me your grilled chicken." I thought, I'm sure you're not allowed to say that.
They get cancelled.
Yeah, you know, and the Running Man and the Hawking and all these great names. And it was 5 positions that Pritt Mickelson and the guys were showing their guys. And within a year of training, these white belts were being attacked, you know, were sparring with black belts, and the black belts couldn't pin them. It's not that the white belts could attack, they couldn't.
Yeah.
They didn't know the attacks, but their defence was amazing. Anyway, we've adopted that, and I thought, bloody hell, that's interesting. 5 things. What about if we cut down the amount of eskrima that we teach in the early days? So instead of teaching dosi pares, teach cinco terros, which is 5 cardinal blows.
Yeah.
It's an X. It's this. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Everybody can draw an X.
Yeah.
And you look at my students and realise they can't draw a bloody X at all. But it gives 12 things is hard to think about. 5 things and the range, that's interesting.
Bit more.
So we rewrote the syllabus, changed things around, put some other stuff into the higher grades, which wasn't necessary, included more knife work.
Yeah.
And we ended up with a system that has held people grading through far more, because by the time they get to the trapping and the dosi pares, which is complex, they already love it.
Right.
So what happens is they get frustrated and they want to learn more, but at the same time they already got all this training before that keeps them there, because they understand that, you know, if the shit hits the fan, this bit works. This works in the grappling. This works with the weaponry if someone attacks you with a blade. This works, you know, in the stand-up range. You've got a nice core of stuff. Now, if you go back to JKD, Bruce was all about the core. Nucleus first, then outside the nucleus.
Yep.
Well, we got the same thing, but we've evolved it in that different way. So going back to the Bruce Lee to you thing, that's one of the things that I want to show. I want to show my students over 4 hours, this is what we do. So yeah, I'll teach you to trap, I'll teach you to do this. And you work around a real nice structure off the 6 gates principle and talk about Bruce Lee, and here we are, you know, 2026, this is what the art looks like.
Yeah. How's your own personal development kind of gone then, from training or starting in the 80s to then following it through to now? How's it changed? How's your focus changed physically and in terms of the attributes you're building mentally as well? Like, how's it changed focus, I suppose?
Well, the big thing that changed was in 2000, yeah. In 2000, I was in the car listening to Radio 5, and I heard a guy called Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, and he asked this question. He said, "Who is making your life less than wonderful?" And I thought, blimey, that's an elegant question, that is. That's not who's pissing me off, who gets on your tits. No, who is making your life less than wonderful? I thought, I've got to listen to this. And I listened to this guy, and he was absolutely brilliant. I thought, then they said they was teaching a seminar in London, like in a month's time. I thought, I'm signing up for that.
Yeah.
So it was like 500 people in some town hall in London. I can't even remember where. And then I was asking questions, and he talked about the language of the jackal and the giraffe. And he said, when we're kids, as children, we can't speak at all, and yet we can communicate with our animal. I'm thinking of the dog. We can communicate with mum and dad, and it's done through different cries. Now, dads are rubbish at this, but mums are really good. So they understand the different cries. Only about 4 different cries, but dads struggle. But we can communicate. He said, but then when we start to learn words, quite quickly, especially when we go to school, we learn to tell people what they are rather than what is our problem. So if, for example, someone has said something that upsets you in some way, I don't like your shirt, Dan. And you go, fucking good shirt, this, you cheeky bastard. As soon as you've done that, see what you've done? You cheeky bastard. You've just called them what they are. Mm-hmm. You haven't said, oh, well, why is that then? Mm. We don't learn to speak from the heart. We speak from the head. And we learn that because it's quicker in the shorthand to say to someone, you're a knobhead.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, look, you've upset me because this is it. Now, it can be also that woke way. We're going, you offended me. Who cares? But what we're looking for is direct communication. Anyway, all this is quite complex. And I thought, I like this. And then I went to do, then I saw there was an ad for Paul McKenna and Richard Bandler to do an NLP training. And then I trained with Tony Robbins. So about 25 years ago, I did all this training in these different psychological aspects. And I became a therapist for 12 years. So I would cure phobias and I would help people with anxiety and depression and all that sort of stuff. And then I sort of, honestly, got a bit sick of it, really. Mm-hmm. And it's not a great business model either, because if you cure a phobia, you can't give another one on the way out, can you? You come in with spiders, I'll give you snakes on the way out, come back in 2 weeks.
Like a repeat custom.
So you're always looking for new customers, it's hard work. So and then I evolved into the publishing side as well. So I started publishing books. But what that did with my psychology in terms of what I just wanted to understand the human psyche much more and be able to deal with why we deal with things. I was very simple in my attitude when I was younger, I saw that today somewhere. Just train more. Mm-hmm. Just train more, don't answer anything. You get very fit, but you become very weak mentally as well.
You've got to train intelligently.
You've got to train intelligently. I mean, after Richard passed away, I was looking for new mentors, and I was introduced to the works of David Goggins, and I loved Can't Hurt Me. I thought it was an incredible book, and I loved his attitude, but I can't be Bruce Lee. I can't be David Goggins. The man's bloody
Not
mad.
A lot of people can.
No, and that's the point. But there's a tendency to follow these people, wanting to be the next David Goggins, but you're not. And so, I still, in terms of physical stuff, I'm bigger than I used to be. I weight train a lot more than I used to, and I like that. That's fine. We talked earlier about getting older. Stretching to me, I stretch every day.
Yeah.
I've got to keep the thoracic region loose, because that way I can do all the stuff. I can still kick and do all those sorts of things. I can't kick people in the head as much as I used to, but just find children, they're much easier to kick. And so I keep all that going. I run, 4 days a week, and we do challenges. So I'm in the TRDG group with Mo Teague's TRDG group, and we're doing Penny Fan this year. So we're doing a fan dance.
Nice.
There's a bunch of us going to go. That's a challenge. You've got to have challenges no matter what age you are. Yeah. Otherwise you get lazy. And I've had years where I didn't do challenges, and I realise that's me slacking off and giving myself an excuse not to do certain things. And sometimes the challenge is to get through the hard times that I went through. Yeah. And other times it is, right, I want a physical challenge, I want to prove myself to myself, character is who you are when no one is watching and all that type of stuff. And so in terms of my training, I read every day, I research every day, we look at what goes on in the classes, you look at the way a young person, and by young I mean 14, 15, is training compared to someone in their 30s or 50s. And you have to adapt that teaching method as well for your system. But equally, you can't let the standards drop. One of my jobs is to bring the standards up for teenagers.
Yeah.
because they don't realise how low their level is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not acceptable. This is more acceptable. This is more acceptable. Mo, we just published Mo's book just before Christmas. Grab a cup of concrete. Have a cup of concrete and harden the fuck up. And I'm really proud of this. But me and 8 others, we are members of the Concrete Club. Look, so that's a cup full of concrete. I'm really proud of that as well. When he gave it out, I was like, "That's amazing! That is, I love it."
Yeah, cool.
So it's about people who go through hard times, train through hard times, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Understand the principle. Brilliantly titled book. And Mo was saying when he was 16, he was in the Navy, and one of the things they had to do was they had to climb this. I think it was 160-foot mast. They don't do it anymore, but it was part of a demonstration thing that they used to do. And there was one person whose job it was to stand at the very top of this 160-foot pole and take the salute. And they'd shin up the last part and do it and stand there on top of this little plinth. Bloody hell, it's probably about as big as my mouse mat. It's that sort of size. And you're standing on that 160 foot up.
No thanks.
And well, that's what Mo said. He said, I was terrified of heights. He went to a certain level. He said, but even that was absolutely terrifying. As a 16-year-old, for them all to be doing that, that's proper. They don't do it anymore. It stopped in 1979 or 8 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But, that was tough as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And yet so many people come in at my class at 15, 16, can't do 10 push-ups, can't do 5 push-ups.
Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And yet the ones who stay, they're great. One of my favourite students in the class, I think he's 12 now. He's tiny. Oliver is tiny. He doesn't back down from anything. By the time, if he carries this on and he gets to 16, he's going to be awesome. And if his hormones kick in and he grows up to, he ends up at 5'10" or whatever, he's going to remember those times when he was a little lad. We had a guy called Edward years ago, same as Oliver, a tiny little fella, got his black belt, trained really hard, did all that stuff. This is character forming stuff. This is important work we do.
Yeah, it's great.
And, in amongst all the fun that we have with it, sometimes I think we forget how important it is of what we are doing and what we're sharing and all these experiences. And when I was a young man, we used to have people in their 40s and 50s at the Kempo club that I went to. And I was always intrigued by them. But sometimes I did think, oh, just an old fart. And I know they think that of me. Mm-hmm. And by the time they get to 60, I'll be long gone.
Yeah.
And yet, in the same way that my teachers are. That's why I want to teach these lessons. That's why I write the books. That's why I write the articles. That's why I'm doing these sorts of things now.
Legacy.
Yeah. Legacy is important. Because you go, this is it's a bloody great picture of Richard Bustillo when you come in my place.
Yeah.
But only one person has ever asked me who he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
interesting. That's who he is. Sometimes I tell them who he is.
Yeah.
But no one ever goes, what's that there then?
We have exactly the same. We've got our lineage wall on the Empower thing, where it's Guru Dan, it's Bruce Lee, Rick Young's on there, Rick Fay's on there, Matt Chapman's on there, a couple of other people on there. No one's ever Phil Norman's on there. No one's asked and be like, who are these guys then? Or it's very, very rare that people. I'm like, yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you think it's obvious, wouldn't you?
Well, it'd be the first thing I asked if I walked into a new place.
Yes.
Like, who's that and why is he on the wall?
Now, what does that tell you about us? That tells you that we think differently.
Mm.
I can remember when you went full time, which is 6-7 years ago now.
Yeah.
And when you first went and how nervous you were, you're going to open your class, and it went really well quite quickly because that was your focus, and you were not going to fail no matter what. And we've all been down that path.
Yeah.
And because you believe what you do, sometimes it's really difficult for us to say. I was explaining this in terms of business and the way that business is taught through MBAs or whether it's to the entrepreneur circle that I'm in, that what we are learning in business is exactly the same trajectory as it is in martial arts.
Yeah.
When you start in business, you are a white belt.
Yep.
You are just hoping for the best, that you don't go down in 1 year. That's what you're trying to do. And you're trying to learn all these skills. What you don't realise is that 35 years later, you're still trying to learn the skills because they all change.
Because it's evolved.
When it went from Yellow Pages to online, oh my God, I didn't know what the bloody hell was going on, because that was guaranteed to bring students in, the Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
And now, the Yellow Pages have been, I think Yale.com still exists, but
Yeah.
yellow paper, a book with phone numbers in it.
Nah, gone.
What the hell is that for?
Yeah.
I'll just Google it. Now even Google's starting to struggle now because of
Yep.
ChatGPT.
No, it's AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
Geo, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just go. Why would you go on Google? Would you go on Chat and it will give you all the links in Google
Yeah, exactly.
and it shows you where to go.
Another evolution.
Another evolution. Yeah. Yeah. I can remember when text first went on phone. I didn't send a text message for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I got a text message from, I think it was Sony Ericsson. Would you like us to show you how to show a text message? You know, sort of like, what?
Yeah.
And then, why would you put phones on a camera? What a strange thing to do. Bizarre. You know, the fact that
And here we are now in 2026, and
well, I like I said, I'm moving, and just behind me, I have literally hundreds of videos I want to convert
yeah,
to digital.
Yeah.
I've got private lessons with Kakoi. I've got
Nice.
videos of Richard. I've got all sorts of stuff that I want to put together as a. It'll be an online program in the end.
Great.
Because there's so much stuff in there that people will just want to buy.
whoa, yeah,
Bob Breen is worse. Bob Breen was a sod for this stuff. We'd go to the Philippines or we'd go somewhere, he'd video all this stuff on a big camera, he'd bring it back, he'd put it in the machine, and then he'd forget about it. And then when Jack was little, we'd end up, you'd be watching a video, and all of a sudden Peppa Pig comes up in the middle of it. You know, you've just been watching these great grandmasters, and you go, "What's happened?" Oh, he said, "Oh,
sorry, I
take
taped
over it."
over it.
Yeah, Bob was renowned for it.
Yeah, I believe that.
So luckily some of that stuff was rescued. Someone nicked some stuff off him,
Yeah.
and we ended up getting copies. And we've got times from '92 and stuff like that where we saw these great guys who were doing things, and it was rescued for legacy. Yeah, really, that type of stuff.
What do you want your legacy to be then, as a kind of final thought?
Well, first of all, to not worry about it too much for the next 30 years. That's the first thing. You know, I said early, when I was a little boy, 6 years old, I wanted to live to 100. Now, I've never changed that. I've always wanted to break 100, 102.
But a good 100.
Yeah, good 100. We're talking Dick Van Dyke 100.
Yeah,
That's what we want. We want everything still to be working, the brain still to be going, you know. That's what I want. So that's the first thing, is to live long and prosper.
and prosper. Yeah,
And the next thing would be for me to be the link from those old original guys to the new part.
yeah,
You know, when I did 3 of the exhibitions last year, I did martial art, the one in Doncaster, the martial arts show in Doncaster. I did the Southwest show, and I did Kaizen, and I'm going to do the same thing again this year.
yeah.
I lost a few years, about 3 years, because of what happened with Kirsty. And so I came back out, and I have this real clear vision of what I want to do from founders to the future.
Yeah.
This is what the founders were doing. This was really interesting stuff. This stuff is still relevant. You can still use this. You can't beat jab, cross, hook. It's just brilliant.
It's just,
You know, you can't stop. You know, if you've got a jab like Larry Holmes and he punches you in the face, yeah, you don't need much else, do you?
No, yeah, you're pretty there.
Richard used to have this brilliant question. He used to ask a group of people. He said, "What's an advanced technique?" They'd all be scratching their heads, and they go, "Jumping, spinning back kick."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he says. What about like a Ferretti with a stick and then hitting
Yeah.
this way? Yeah, okay. They come up with about 6 things, and he say, "What about knock 'em out with one punch? How much more advanced you want to be?"
Yeah,
I never forgot that.
very true.
Essence of Jeet Kune Do, you see.
Exactly.
One
Simplicity,
punch.
go, bam, done.
Yes. And so in terms of legacy, I want to share all that. That's my thing. I'm rewriting Punching Above My Height. It was
Great.
supposed to be out in January, but it'll be out for Doncaster for sure.
Brilliant.
That tells the story of martial arts in the UK and our martial arts in the UK. Because originally I did the stuff on JKD, but I never did any stuff on the Filipino arts, so I've put that in the new book.
Great.
You know, how Danny ended up here and how Dossi Paris grew and what a great job he's done in spreading that art.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Lightning Scientific guys, and you've got the Inosanto guys,
Yeah.
you know, and that element of it. Where did it come from? You know, who first brought them here? What was the impact?
Great.
And so I want to share that, and I want to keep evolving and keep training and just learning little keys all the time. Just them little, was it that great phrase, is small hinges swing big doors.
Yeah.
You know, that's really the key to our martial art. If we can go to a seminar or go to something, like this business thing I went to, that was a big door that I saw. But usually for us who've been around for a while, you go, "Oh, I haven't seen that before."
A little
So
Yeah.
In March, we're doing a thing called the three-way. It's me, Mo Teague, and Jeff Espino, and it's provocatively titled.
Did you come up with that name by any chance?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah. He follows on from the Dirty Weekend that we did last year.
It
You
does,
see.
yeah.
And so on that seminar, Jeff was introduced. I mean, he had been here before, but lots of people hadn't seen him. So he is a guy who shares his Silat knowledge. I mean, he lived in the Inosanto Academy for 18 months.
Yeah.
Not like he trained there. He lived there.
Yeah.
So he was obsessed with those arts. Brilliant stick man, brilliant all-round martial artist. But his Silat is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a great Silat fan at all, but when you watch Jeff do it, it's great. And he's so funny. He's such a great guy.
Cool.
And we're doing that. So that's in March, and that's the 3 different approaches to different martial arts. But the unique thing we are doing on this year is on the Sunday morning. One of my black belts runs a pub, and she's let us use the pub for Sunday morning. So Mo and Jeff are going to do an hour each on pub environment training in a pub, which would be great fun. Yeah, that'd be good fun. But when we do those courses, I want to run seminars that people don't just come to and enjoy. They come away, and at the end on Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock, I want them upset that they're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do. We introduced goodie bags last year. Brought goodie bags. People had goodie bags as soon as they turned up.
Yeah.
You know, it'd have something like, it'd have a little magazine in there, and it'd have a pen in there. And one person said, "Wow, you had a penguin in there. You can't believe how much I needed a penguin just then at that time." You know, it's that tiny bits, all these little things. It can't just be a technique seminar. It's got to be something that touches your heart. We do the Saturday night where we all get together. We go to the pub. We all have a meal. And we build the family.
Nice.
I know MKG do the similar sort of thing.
Yeah, they're very big on that.
And it is that. It's these people who do these arts for a weekend. We can just escape our family and live with this family.
Yeah.
Because then we're nourished to go back to our family because we're so happy about what we've done.
Sure.
But can't wait for the next time when we get to do it all again.
Sure. Perfect. Andy, thank you very much. Having said that, I've got to go and teach my second family now and go
Lovely.
my kids' class. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. I'm sure I will see you somewhere soon.
Cool.
And thank you very much.